This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. Hello, everyone. This is your host, Barbara Vocatus. Welcome to my podcast on education innovation. Sometimes I have a guest who directly works with children or teenagers, or is an administrator leader who is into innovation and really understands that we have a lot of power to change education daily, even without changing a huge system, because it's not really that necessary to make some substantial changes. But I also love to invite on my show people who are neurodivergent, and that does not mean necessarily autistic, but I did have a lot of guests who are autistic, but also at the same time have attention deficit. They like to call it disorder, but this is only an official name that I don't really like that much, and for a variety of reasons. But every time I have a guest who is neurodivergent, I can learn so much and we all can learn so much, because this is a lot about all the difficulties and obstacles and issues they encountered throughout probably the whole educational career, right? Education should be empowering. Well, not always and not for everybody. Yeah, we love here too, because, without that, life would be extremely boring and difficult to kind of handle. But yeah, it is kind of ironic that they went through many of them went through educational system, and the system really empowered them. And there's always a lot that I can learn from that, both young people who are currently going through educational system and maybe they are in high school and struggling, but also teachers and parents can learn from this resilience, because everybody who has been on my show and who went through these struggles arrived in a different place. But it wasn't easy. But they did manage to arrive at a different place. And not only that, they are making a significant contribution to the world, to many other neurodivergent people, and to changing the system. So I think such guests are just extremely important. And today my guest is an incredible person. She's connecting from Europe, so it's a little different time zone. But so far, connection is going very well. Welcome, Claire, on my
Thank
podcast,
you.
Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. You're very welcome. Claire, and last name is Zay, but I pronounce it at the beginning Z, because being that I've been living in the United States for so many years, I just kind of either pronounce names in English name way or Polish way, depending on like what works for me. But a little bit, I would like to introduce Claire a little bit more to our wonderful audience. I love what it says in her LinkedIn profile here in the highlight, that she helps neurodiverse leaders and high performers move from self-doubt to confidence through nervous system and emotional regulation, so they can focus and execute without shame or burnout. So this is not like this general kind of quick promise, oh, I'm just helping and that's it. But there is this concrete message here, right? Nervous system and emotional regulation. I have to say, and I wonder what Claire thinks about it, that this is kind of a problem for all of us. Like, even it doesn't matter if we are neurodivergent or, autistic, or with diagnosed attention issues or something else, because there's a lot of other conditions too, and OCD, we know. But many people, I think, have issues with the regulation, because even the calmest, I think, person cannot really separate themselves always from the world and what the world brings, right? And so we know that there is a lot of destruction, there is a lot of things happening, that you really have to learn how to regulate your nervous system, and you don't have to be neurodivergent. But a little bit more about Claire. So with over 15 years of global experience of high tech and financial markets, she has worked with executives worldwide, gaining deep insight into the pressures, decision-making complexities, and leadership challenges that high performers face. Wow. And they do face. I mean, there is no
Absolutely.
doubt about that. I love that. And her work is rooted in the understanding that success is not just about external achievement, but more so about inner alignment, releasing limiting beliefs, cultivating resilience, and leading from a place of clarity and confidence. This is definitely huge, and it sounds to me like, like a game changer, because that's where everything starts when you think about some kind of regulation and improvement, right? And her own transformation began after experiencing burnout in high pressure environments, which led her to explore meditation, mindfulness, and deep inner work. And I know that Claire also has attention deficit, correct? Whether diagnosed officially or not, we can talk about it more. But this experience shaped her mission to help leaders break free from outdated belief systems, boy, they are outdated, align with their true values, and lead with both power and purpose. And now, with a Dutch Indonesian background and the perspective of a third culture kid, she understands the nuances of identity, belonging, and self discovery. And her passion lies in helping people reconnect with their authentic selves and create meaningful, lasting change in both their leadership and lives. And also, Claire holds, yeah, I haven't finished yet, right? But I'm coming to the end. Claire holds a master's in international relations, and that's University of Sydney, and a bachelor's in political science, University of Amsterdam. By the way, I live near Amsterdam, but that's New York. But I suspect you're talking about Amsterdam, Netherlands. And also is PCEC, which I will have to get that explanation from him. Certified executive coach and certified meditation teacher. I just like, from this background, when I think about it, there's just so much, but also everything is like aligned and all these pieces work together for who you are today. Again, welcome on my show.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And honestly, I don't even know where to start. And I'm going to start by asking you, because that's just a lot of background and a lot of work that you have done, and a long journey that led to certain things, to certain jobs that you then sort of rethought, should I be going that way? Something's going on here. Something's breaking apart. If you could just first tell us about your journey as a kid, in school, what kind of kid you were and what your experiences were in the educational system.
Thank you so much for the intro, Dr. Barb.
I
really
just call
appreciate
me
it.
Barb.
I
I'll get
somehow
very
feel like I
mad.
want to call you Dr. Barb.
No, don't do that.
Barb.
I am a legitimate doctor, yes, but I just always tell people, just please call me Barb.
Okay, Barb. So, yeah, thank you so much for the intro. My childhood probably was a very unusual childhood, in all honesty. So I grew up with a mother who was a refugee from a former Dutch colony. So my entire family on my mom's side that I was very close with, I mostly grew up with them, and they were forced refugees after the Second World War and after Indonesia became an independent country. And I would say that that's heavily influenced who I am as well. I've always felt very close to this part of my identity, especially because I grew up with this part of my family. I grew up as a child in a single home family. So my mom was a single mom. My dad was Dutch. I grew up in a home when I was younger that actually there was alcoholism and drug abuse from my father. So it wasn't very easy growing up, and I was also the oldest child. So funnily enough, this was in the 80s, and my mom was very kind of aware of kind of new things like at the time, like psychology or even like ADD, which was really like at the beginning stages that people were even starting to talk about this. And my brother very clearly had ADHD, so he was diagnosed from an early age, and we always lived with this knowing of that my brother had ADHD. I was the perfect kid. I kind of masked my way through life. People pleased my way through life. And also as the oldest daughter in a family with a single mom who was a foreigner in the country that we lived in. Yeah, I kind of took on a role of I guess, supporter of my mom or like second caregiver, even for my brother who was 5 years younger. I never even thought that I had ADHD, although I did always know that there were certain things I'm hypersensitive to, certain things. I've had synesthesia since I'm a kid, and I was always very creative, and I did notice that my brain kind of operated a bit differently from others, but I didn't like link that to having ADHD at all. I was actually a perfect student in school, always top of my class. I went to one of the best high schools in the Netherlands because of
Wow.
this. And I only really started to struggle, I would say, from about age 14, 15 with what I couldn't place at that time. I just felt out of place.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, again, like my brain was working differently. I wasn't able to focus the same way other kids were able to. I still made it through the entire school system doing pretty well. I went to university, got a bachelor's and a master's degree. But in hindsight, I would say that I had to work really, really hard to actually get all of those things done. But I never registered that as being weird. I thought that that was
Mm-hmm.
normal. But now I understand that actually, I did a pretty crazy job with having to work with this brain without knowing what was going on, right? I did suffer from anxiety and depression a lot. And I think a lot of that came from unmanaged ADHD symptoms. So actually for about 20 years, I suffered a lot from anxiety and depression. And I was even medicated for it at some point. Yeah.
Well, Claire, thank you so much for the sharing because I think that including myself, in general, I think people not really don't understand what attention deficit, which is like less interactive type and more interactive type. There's like different types of it. And again, I'm not an expert, but I think that when we say this name, attention deficit disorder, it really kind of draws like or paints a wrong picture of it because we tend to think it's about that you're just easily distracted. So that's what it means, right? You're easily distracted. So you're gonna have problem with paying attention. And yes, this can be one of the features, highlights, whatever you call it, of this condition, but that's just only one of them because you have mentioned things like anxiety, and then it can develop into depression and probably even other things. So that is huge. That's not included in this name, anxiety disorder. I mean, attention disorder. It's not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I would even say it's not really like an attention disorder at all. It's just that we do have attention. In fact, we have something called hyperfocus or hyperfixation,
right.
and we are able to focus probably way better than most of our neurotypical peers, but it just depends on what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And there has to be like an interest or
Yeah.
it's not urgency based, it's just interest based. So it can really work in our favor if it's the right topic that we're focusing on.
Yes. These
Yeah.
things, Claire, but the more I learn about it too, also, this is biological. This is related to how these brain works. And I remember when I found out that even like dopamine works differently in neurodivergent brains, including people with, you see, when I say attention deficit disorder, it's like, what am I talking about, right? We're talking about the same thing. It seems
Yeah.
so strange, but even dopamine works differently. So the people who, let's say in school, they are asked to focus on things they are totally they are not interested in, and they have hard time focusing on the things that the teacher asked them to focus, not because they are lazy, not because they are labeled of, you have this attention deficit disorder. And a lot of teachers try their hardest to make this kid pay attention to the stuff they're not interested in, not realizing that by doing this, they ask this kid to almost do like either impossible for their brain work, or they ask them to do the work that is like exhausting them because this work exhausts them. Isn't that right? Just because, you know
Yes.
more about it right now because you've been studying it more and this is a core of your work too. Am I saying it right? Am I?
Absolutely. Like we're forced to kind of focus or turn on our focus on things that maybe don't automatically actually our brain focuses on or wants to focus on. So I would say like it's actually the opposite of laziness. Like a lot of people with ADHD believe that, or they've grown up believing that they're lazy
Oh
because
gosh,
the
I know.
systems around them have constantly signaled to them that something is wrong with them. They're not doing it right. You know, why can't I focus? Why can't I complete this task? Why am I procrastinating? It must mean that I'm lazy, right? But actually, for an ADHDer to do the same task as a neurotypical, it requires us to use double the energy,
I
basically.
know,
And so,
right?
actually, we're like working double as hard, or I don't know, for some people, maybe even triple as hard to get the same accomplishments. When I work with my clients, for example, that have ADHD, we always like work on this like belief system of being lazy, that actually it's quite the opposite. You're like such a hard worker
I know.
that, to actually try to get the same results as everyone
Yeah.
else, you have to work so hard. So yeah, it's kind of ironic. And to be honest, I hate this, really hate the term disorder. I don't think it's a disorder
Yeah.
at all. I don't
Very
believe
bad.
in any of these things.
Yeah.
I always say to my clients that I work with, ADHD isn't a disorder, it's just a messenger. And it's a messenger of what isn't working in our cultures, what isn't working in our systems. Often also it's like a messenger of basically like certain patterns that have been wired into our brain. And why have they been wired into our brains? Like could be intergenerational trauma. ADHD and a lot of the neurodivergent actually share a lot of overlap with biological terrain in the brain with trauma. They're very similar responses often. So, do we
Yeah.
have a disorder, or is it actually a sign that maybe the way that we're living, it's not sustainable? Maybe our systems are not sustainable. Maybe even the way that we've grown up or related to our parents, and maybe the trauma from a few generations ago is actually presenting itself in us as neurodivergence, right? So this is the way that I look at it. I always say it's a messenger, and basically it's ADHD symptoms are asking us to listen, because basically the symptom is not a problem. The symptom is actually the body doing its work properly.
Yeah.
Once we understand what it's trying to tell us, because procrastination means that there's some kind of pressure, there is something, it's like an avoidance, it's a survival tactic, right? So it's coming from a pattern where our nervous system is basically indicating I'm in survival right now and I don't feel safe to move forward, so I'm procrastinating. But we just don't look at it through that lens. And that's, the work I do.
Absolutely amazing. But I was trying to, as you probably noticed, was trying to avoid the term
Yeah.
disorder, obviously, and I then replaced it with the term condition, which still signals like this disordery kind of thing. But I love your term messenger because that is a different game here. And I think the big thing that we have right now, that's why the system is kind of not moving quickly enough, because everything is really the way that children's are, they are labeled in school. System is based on these stigmas, on these old labels, on
Yeah.
conditions, disorders. And
Yes.
let's imagine if everything was, replaced by something like a messenger. Well, this child has a certain messenger, and you just describe what's going on, right? Without like really labeling it. But we, not only that we use labels, I understand the tendency to name something in order to receive help. Kids have to be labeled. That's how the system works. You're not going to get the help if you're not labeled with something, right?
Yeah.
But then it really creates this avalanche of other things and how you are perceived as a student. And if we use a different terminology, messenger, and also with understanding of what that means based on your explanation, and that would draw then the kind of help that children actually need in a totally different
Exactly.
way. That's what we need.
Yes.
So we have to start
Yes.
revolutionizing here something, Clark.
Yes.
I'm not putting a lot more
Absolutely.
work on your plate, but actually
We're
I am, right?
pioneers, Barb.
We gotta
We
do
are.
something.
Yeah.
Each of us has a little bit different, right? Sort of like piece of the pie where we focusing on. But me with the therapy animals and stuff, it's got an important piece because that's how it can regulate for children so much in school.
Yes.
But I'm just thinking like for everybody, for the teacher, for the school counselor, right, from for psychologists, if they even if they the school system operates with the labels, but if they start thinking about these children they serve in a different way, right?
Mm.
Using in their minds and their brains different terminology, different words. Like this kid is a messenger of something here, and that's what, you know, that would really make a difference. And teachers, psychologists, counselors working in school, they can even start using this terminology themselves in their own
Right.
heads, right? You
Right.
can still
Right.
operate in the old system, but you
Right.
can make changes in the way you think. So
Yes.
this is something that we really have to work on. I would like to, if you okay with that, if you could take us back to the situation that made you like rethink your career, and I know it was connected to you as a messenger of right, certain things that your brain was doing, right, and what you were doing did not work, and you found about it that it didn't work in a very dramatic way, and then you made the changes. If you could walk us through that pathway a little bit, that would be great. Like what you did
Yeah.
and when it crashed, and then what you decided to change. Because this can be also an incredible indicator for young people what to
Yeah.
consider when you are this type of messenger, right?
Yeah. And I think for anyone, not just
Yeah,
like neurodivergence, right?
exactly.
For neurotypicals too. Yeah. So what happened to me is after I graduated from my master's degree, I sort of by accident found myself becoming a headhunter. And specifically, I was working in finance globally. So financial markets within a very specific niche of finance. High frequency trading. It's probably one of the most high performing environments that you can work in.
Yeah.
It's extremely fast. It's extremely, a lot of the people there, I would actually like to argue, a lot of them probably are neurodivergent. Lots of engineers and mathematicians and people that are
Yeah.
really, really good with, very good numerically. And yeah, I did that for 15 years. And to be honest, I really loved what I did from the perspective of I was always traveling, I was always in different countries, I was speaking to all these brilliant minds, and I got to use my skill of pattern recognition where I was able to connect people to extremely hard to fill roles and
Wow.
really
Yeah.
understand why they would be the good fit without really having an explanation necessarily for it, but just knowing it from the first
Wow.
conversations. This was really, in a way, it was really fun for a while, but I also, during all this time, felt that a real purpose was missing from my life. I kind of believed, funnily enough, that maybe I don't have a purpose. I thought maybe it's just some people that have a purpose, people that know that they want to be a doctor when they're very young and then they become a doctor and then they fulfill this
Yeah.
purpose. I didn't really know that I had a purpose. And when I was about 40, I was working for a high frequency trading firm. I started to hear about ADHD in women. And I was like, oh my God, I had a friend who is very similar to me. And she started to forward all these podcasts to me.
Oh my
I was like,
gosh.
hang on, this sounds really like it's me. I recognize myself literally in everything. So I went to my therapist at the time, and he was also able to diagnose me with ADHD,
Yeah.
which really helped me kind of make sense of my world, this world that I'd been living in and feeling like I was not fitted properly to it. And so that really helped me. But what really changed the course of my life, I was always working, like I said, in these high performance environments.
Yeah.
I lived on different continents. I would move from continent to continent. I always
Yeah.
had so much energy, and I was also quite impulsive in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I woke up one day, probably a year or so after I got diagnosed with a paralyzed left arm. I didn't know it at the time. I kind of thought, okay, well, I'm sure it will start working again, this arm. And I actually kept working for a whole week with a paralyzed arm because my hand was still working, so I could still type. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, and then finally, what happened was I had a paralyzed arm for 3 months.
ooh,
I was sick for 7. I started to developing all these other, yeah, pretty serious issues physically, and I had zero energy. And basically, I spent 7 months by myself at home trying to get better, and I wasn't getting better. And I really had to do so much work on myself and really understand that actually this is a major learning curve. I mean, I was in a really, really desperate situation because when you don't have your body, you can't like work, you can't do anything.
yeah.
It's very scary. And I also wasn't getting better all this time. 7 months is a very long time to be sick and not getting better. So I was forced to face myself in a way that I had never faced myself before. And I would say that it kind of was a spiritual awakening and an
Mm.
awakening of, this realization that I wasn't connected to my body. I was always in my mind. Everything was happening in my mind. And that had served me well, but I was completely disconnected from my body. And I learned to connect to my body through meditation and mindfulness. And actually, when I started doing that, practicing that, I started to get better within 3 weeks' time. And I wanted to return to my job. So I actually flew back to Amsterdam, where I was working at the time. And the minute I got to the office, they fired me on the spot. And so the thing that I was scared of the most actually happened.
It was gone.
But that was it. And then, but the thing is, like in that moment, I realized that this window had opened, that this was
Yeah.
my chance to do something entirely different, not just like from a work perspective, but really from a life perspective. That actually the universe was speaking to me in this moment and saying, okay, now you have this choice to make. Either you continue doing, just your corporate stuff that you've always been doing, but that doesn't give you this real satisfaction, or you take the full responsibility, take the huge risk, jump
Yeah.
into it, have the courage, and don't know where you're going to end up, but you kind of know that actually that's your destiny and you've always known that. And so that's what I chose, not knowing where I'd end up. I just thought and I figured out pretty quickly I want to do coaching because I've worked with leaders for 15 years, so this makes sense. But I also want to use spirituality and energy
Mm-hmm.
because this is what I helped me and actually made me reconnect to myself. So yeah, I became an executive coach. I just started without entrepreneurial experience and started pretty successfully coaching people on 4 continents. And then about a year ago or less than a year ago, I had this like insight about, what this whole ADHD journey and all my many years of depression and anxiety, actually, I can make this so simple for people because actually what people with neurodivergence need is practicality that comes from
Mm-hmm.
lived experience. And I'm going to put this in a framework. I'm someone that I like to take all this information and I have this pattern recognition and I can just put it into a system, translate it, make an architecture that makes sense for people. So then I wrote my course. I created a neurodiversity course for nervous system regulation called Real Focus. And yeah, by chance or destiny, I don't know what you want to call it, I got in contact with someone at Howard University in the US and they bought my course.
Right.
And that's where I started teaching it first. And now
That's
I
amazing.
teach it.
That's, someone recognized this is something that's missing, right? And we need a course like that. So this is incredible. Just a couple points about your journey. Well, first of all, what happened to you when you all of a sudden found out, oh gosh, what's going on? My body says no. It's like your
Yeah.
mind was dictating all this, right, crazy work schedules, all this stuff that you just described to what that job was
Yeah.
involved. I mean, it's an incredible job, but it's just and then all of a sudden the body says, oh well, sorry, maybe your mind can keep going like that, but we can't
Yeah.
because it
Literally.
doesn't work for the body, right?
Yeah.
So you know like you said, there are probably and the people who are still working in that job even right now as we speaking, and they might be also neurodivergent, and maybe it's just a chance or luck that their body is still saying okay, or maybe they found ways of doing something right to sort of figure out a way of connecting body and mind. And boy, the more we know about this, the more we know that there is a very, very tight connection between body and mind that we in
Absolutely.
conventional medicine have been neglecting for for
Yes.
decades, right? But now
Yes.
we have some, I mean, you are the answer and you are like sort of like this proof of how that works too.
Yes.
But then you decided, boom, I have to change. And because they fired you, they helped you in making the change too. So that was good. That was like this blessing that sometimes happens. It's kind of dramatic a little bit, but it works out. But now for, you know, let's say maybe there is someone young listening to us, in high school, and they just like it's like you hate high school obviously because you have to learn stuff you don't want to really learn and all that. But the reality also is that when you're done with high school, then you might face more issues because you gotta figure out something what to do, right? You
Yeah.
have to get a job or you have to go to
Yeah.
college, but you have to also, I believe, have some kind of understanding that whatever you do, you have to think about yourself and how you're going to function in all this craziness, figuring out what you're going to do in life. Do you have any like advice or tips for people who are, let's say finishing up high school, graduating, and they like not so much know what to do, or they just go to college, but they don't really understand yet that it's really important to prioritize yourself and your health, and that includes
Yeah.
physical and mental health. I
Yeah.
think it really is important. You have to start the right way, but many young people just don't know about it, don't think about it. They just ignore it, right?
Yeah, I would say what I found, like working with my student cohort at Howard, is that some of them seem to have so much awareness that actually I, at the same age, had zero of this awareness. And I think like one of the things, like obviously social media is having a major negative impact on young people, but I also feel like it can be a portal to getting this information that actually, that I, for example, teach my coaching clients or through my course, you can get that through social media too. So it was interesting for me to see that actually 20-year-olds are doing the kind of inner work that I only started doing like in my late 30s, early 40s, because we never grew up learning anything about this, right? So,
Yeah.
but what you say is really true. I think our world is getting increasingly more complex and fast, growing at an exponential rate. By the way, I have there's
Yeah.
another
Oh my
participant here.
God. So
he,
beautiful
want,
and
he
fuzzy. I want
wants
to touch him right now. Or
he
her.
wants to sit on him. He wants to sit on my lap.
It's so cute. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I would not be able to go anywhere. I would not leave the house with a kitty
I
like
love
that.
staying home. I have two of them.
Well, I'm not surprised right now. Wow.
Yes, but yeah, I think what you say, my advice to anyone that is young right now and maybe having to make decisions about their future, I would say first of all, try to spend some time in stillness. This is like my number one tip, is like if you can even spend like 15 to 20 minutes just by yourself, no phone, just sitting in stillness. And even if you have many thoughts, it's okay, but just to be still and have some alone time, to try to become a little bit more present. You don't even have to meditate. Maybe you want to just do some slow breathing, but just get really still, because I think without stillness, it's going to be really, really difficult for anyone, not just for young people, but for anyone, to know what is it that I really want and that I need. We are so influenced by what everyone else wants or everyone else does, or comparing ourselves, or maybe even our parents, what they
Yeah.
tell us that we need to do. Like, start with just something small, like creating some stillness. Like, this is really, that would be my first tip. And then, of course, I could tell yes, make sure that you move your body, that you
Yeah.
put like healthy food into your body. I think it's really important as well, and that you treat your body well. But I would say start there. You don't have to have all these huge steps yet, but just start there. Maybe start writing down, what are the things that really light me up, what makes me really happy, and that the things that make you happy, they're always an indicator of, maybe what your purpose is or your destiny, or maybe what you need to include, because it's really important for us to feel joy in what we do. I think it's our God-given right.
Exactly. We can't just, exactly. It's not just we want to have the joy, but without that, we losing the purpose, and we losing just like energy in life that you need.
Yeah.
That's why we are created. I also believe in that. And, isn't it simple? I mean, nourish yourself the right way. I mean, there's so much junk food everywhere. We know a lot of
Yes.
young people just, they don't think about it. Even a lot of adults sometimes don't think about it.
Yes.
Does everybody read labels and what's
Yeah.
on the ingredients list? I do, but not everybody does. And because
No.
we just kind of assume, it's in the store. I mean, it's allowed to be sold. So that means it's healthy for me or whatever. But also movement. Recently, my teen child discovered the power of movement. We got those like lifts, because
Nice.
Kalina does not want to go to gyms because it's people sweat there. I don't want to be a part of it because it's like everybody's got different sensitivity. Right? I don't care about it. I don't like see a problem with that. I go to the gym when I can. But says, well, then, Mom, can I get some of these lifts and do it at home? I mean, sure, you can do it. You can do it
Yeah.
at home. And
Yeah.
I hear from them that that it makes a difference to
Yeah.
move. And we talk
Yeah.
about it, how movement
Absolutely.
influences your mental health, how it is extremely important. And I
Yes.
do it in a way that's not like preaching and all the kind of stuff that teens don't like to listen to, right? So I have to be careful how I teach that. But I also really love the idea, and that's a tip for everybody to be still,
Yes.
and at least once in a while. That
Yeah.
means no phone,
Yes.
no TV,
Turn off
no
the
phone.
phone, no podcast, no
Right.
music,
Yeah.
nothing. Just be still. And if it's hard to sit still, maybe go for a walk, in a park, and surround yourself with some trees or even water, be closer to nature.
Yeah.
If it's just 10 or 15 minutes, I would say this is my number one tip for everyone, not just neurodivergents, not just teens, all of us.
Yes, this is even for some, it's even considered to be even meditation when you out in nature
Yes.
and you just immersed in nature and you do maybe just some kind of walking, but you are
Yeah.
focusing just on basically nothing, but just observing the sounds of nature. And I absolutely agree with this. And I know
Yeah.
it works because I've tried
Yeah.
it myself. And let's say that we talked about this issue of labeling children and also how important it is that teachers, counselors, psychologists, that they have a little bit different mindset about these children, because this is really striking. And I don't know if teachers understand it, that these children are asked to do double amount of work and they
Yeah.
still looked at as they are not doing anything. They still have not
Yeah.
done it correctly. They
Yeah.
still, it took them, 2 more hours than a regular kid, but they have used twice or triple amount of their brain capacity to go through the
Yeah.
task. What would be
Yeah.
your message to school leaders and teachers, counselors, psychologists regarding working with a neurodivergent population? I know it's a tough question, but
Yeah, I think, first of all, language, like you said, language is so important, right? What language do we use when we speak about these kids or when we speak to these kids? What is it that what message are they getting from their environment about themselves, right? If the message is you're lazy or you're not doing it right, or why can't you focus, or why are you always procrastinating, or why are you late to class? This obviously affects the way that they start thinking about themselves. So I would say to teachers, it's so important to be careful about what language you actually use. And actually, neuroscience has proven this. Whatever language you use for yourself, the words that you use for yourself, they become your belief systems, and they actually become the filter that you use to see your reality, and you start to actually create your own reality and your actions based on this filtering system that you put into your brain based on the words that you use and people around you use for you. I would say it's so important for any educators or teachers working with young people, whether they're in primary school or students or in high school, to be so careful around what language you use and to use positive reinforcement. It actually proves that it can change people's lives, literally. It will change people's lives, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, again, this information about neuroscience and those discoveries, it's so available these days because you can listen, it's all free information. You can listen on these major podcasts they have, and not so major, but they, incredible experts are invited to those podcasts and they talk about it and they cite research. This is not just beliefs or some kind of, not backed up thinking. And also I've noticed, and this is also very important, like with the teachers working with these kids, if you are a teacher, but you have to really kind of like monitor how you help them with the work, so you don't come out as you rushing them. You have this impatience, and you are irritated by their like if they slower than others. They can pick up on every kind of sign.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to say anything, but if you act like you are irritated by how slow they are or whatever it is, that's happening or not happening, they will pick up on it, kids, and they will create a picture about themselves based on that.
Yes,
But
they will
something's wrong with me.
internalize it.
They will internalize it in such a way that's not a good way, right? And I've
Most
seen that happen.
neurodivergents, most neurodivergents are hypersensitive. They pick up on every small, like change of tone, like change of maybe posture. They feel everything. They see everything.
I mean, this is huge what you just said. I know it from my own child, but this is really huge. Like, we don't think that we show that we want to rush them and we're irritated by them, but they are so sensitive to it that it creates just a huge block for them. So this is, I mean, it doesn't come from bad will from these educators, but they don't understand that probably. Most likely they just don't get it, that it's this hypersensitivity. And like my own child tells me, I can't tell about anybody who enters the room about their energy and other things. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have that sense to that extent. I mean, I have to some extent, but not to that. And I totally believe it. And I know it. I treat it very seriously. Because I'm learning from my own child. But also,
amazing.
It really is. And you saying the same thing. So
yes, absolutely. I'm going to say something that maybe some people are going to think that I'm a little bit crazy for saying this.
We don't care about that.
Exactly. I'm going to say it anyway, because I think exactly these things need to be said, because too many people are holding back. I think the neurodivergents are actually the messengers of what our future is going to be like and what is going to be the future way of communicating with each other, which is based on high sensitivity, it's based on patterns, it's maybe even based on telepathy. And these are just kind of the first messengers of this future that is undeniably coming. And in the old system, we're looking a little bit weird and out of place, perhaps. But I can guarantee you that in this new paradigm, that we're in this transition right now towards a new paradigm, new way of thinking, new systems, new way of leadership, new world. Really, what we are capable of is, going to be kind of the blueprint for the future. Yeah, and it's maybe even a sign of what humans were capable of in the past, but we've just forgotten about because we've been conditioned by, society, systems, patriarchy, even religion to a large extent, all these different things. So maybe it's a return to self, actually.
I just loved what you said. It's such a highlight of this recording, because I believe that too. And these things need to be said, and we have to keep saying it. And some people might be opening their eyes, but whatever. I mean, they need to hear it. And also, towards the end of our conversation, before we started recording, we talked about the meaning of names. And I think it's really so cool. It's important to talk a little bit about this because I know that my name has a meaning, and I know that as I live, I answer that meaning in
What's
certain
the meaning?
ways. So my name is Barbara, and I know that Barbara I'm not like exactly prepared to talk about my name, but in the origins, I think it's a Roman name, if I am not mistaken. I know that Saint Barbara in Catholic religion is a patron of soldiers and miners. So well, let's say brave people. So it's a lot to do with courage, bravery, and she was also a martyr, if the story is to be believed. So I hated my name seriously as a kid. And then one day, I think on the news, they were talking about name day Barbara, because in Poland, name names are really huge. And they were talking about the meaning of this name. And I was
Yeah.
like, wow, that's what my name means. And from that moment, I started liking my name. It's really
Amazing.
crazy, totally amazing. So I
Yeah.
really believe in we were talking in our conversation before the recording. And if you could tell us, and you believe in the same thing pretty much, what the meaning of your name, Claire, is, and also your last name,
Yeah.
and what kind of message we can give to young people who also should find out about what their names mean.
Yeah, so my last name Zee means the ocean or the sea in Dutch. And funnily enough, I grew up seeing the ocean from my bedroom. So I actually grew up on the
Wow.
sea. And I'm also a Pisces, so I'm a fish.
Wow.
And my first name means bright or light. So I believe that my name means sea of light. I'm here to bring lightness to the world, or light to the world, through the work that I do, and to help other people find light and their light. Yeah.
Amazing. So every young person, and doesn't have to be just young, if there's anybody who is, let's say, 80 years old, I don't know, and they like, I don't know what my name means, then just go.
Find the meaning.
You can even enter in Chat GPT, whatever, right? And
Yes.
it will tell you. I mean,
Yes.
and it's kind of really cool to be able to see that, and then like, wow, I mean, my name means something. So that also
Yeah.
connects to like the meaning of your life and the purpose of your life. Really, really important. And
Yes.
it would be cool if also like, teachers kind of like, look at the list of their kids in the classroom they have, and see not just the names, but also like what they mean. And
Oh
also
my
like,
God, I love that.
would that be a
That would
great
be
idea?
so, I think every teacher should do that.
I have to because I teach current teachers and future teachers, I have to tell them that,
Wow. I think
yeah,
that's so powerful.
yeah,
Wow. I love
yeah.
that, Barb.
We should start a new practice, right? That's, no, I'm really thinking about it because that's really important. And
Yeah.
that made me think even more when you were talking about the meaning of your name. Thank you so much, Claire, for all this
Thank you.
conversation. You're welcome. It was absolutely incredible, enlightening, and even really you made some bold statements that I agree with 100% or even more. And people should hear it, because I am signing my name under all this. And that's also why I'm doing my podcast, to magnify these ideas. That is so important to
Right.
do that.
Right. We could
So thank you
always like
so much.
say what everyone else says and stay safe, but I
Yeah,
have
right.
very
We don't want to
deep
do that.
convictions, and I see things, and I think
Yeah.
especially as a neurodivergent, I've always had different perspectives on things, and now
Hmm.
the world is more open to listening to it as well. And
I
I've
think
kind
so.
of, I started also finding my voice in this. So I think I actually, all of us owe it to the world to speak our truths and to speak these, you know, about these
Yeah.
missions that we see or that we have. I think it's important because it also emboldens other people to speak their truth, and to, all of us start connecting to each other and work together as well. So,
I agree, because there are many people who think that way, but they might be afraid of saying this. A lot of parents don't think they have
yes.
voices, and so we should be empowering them. And thank you so much, also a wonderful audience. Please follow the show, Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. Leave us some feedback and let us know what you think about the incredible conversation. But also, I just want to ask Claire, and I almost forgot it. That would be not good, but I'm coming back to it. If you could tell us, Claire, tell our audience where they can follow you, where they can find you on social media, that would be great.
Yes, so they can find me on LinkedIn, first of all. I don't know if everyone is on LinkedIn, but my name is Claire Zee, or on Instagram under my handle is Claire C Coaching. So
Perfect.
CLEARSEE Coaching.
Perfect. Please follow Claire as well. And again, let us know what you think about this conversation. And I will see everybody on social media because that's just how it works, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Claire. Bye-bye, everyone. You're very welcome. This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb.